here, so we invite all of the people who are joining us directly on Zoom. So just so you're aware, if you're watching us live on Facebook, I won't be able to see the questions because unfortunately I'm on my own, so I can't do everything. So I'll be answering any questions. So if you have a question, please make sure to join us on Zoom. You can click on the link and join us at any stage so you can answer them in the Q&A. So for those who aren't able to join us live, that's okay too, because you can catch up a little later. So there's two elements to this piece. So last week, and we're going to have just a re-summary of what we did last week, but we sort of had a look at a certain stage of getting the NB stuff done. And then this week, I was talking to some of the BSA team, and somebody in Facebook asked me, Ron, what does NB stand for? And I didn't realize that it's not a widely used term throughout the world. So N.B. stands for very important. So it's Latin, I believe. I had to go look and see what it was. So it's Latin. So what I'm talking about is tools to get the very important stuff done rather than the urgent stuff. Because quite often it's the urgent stuff that we see first and clatters us across the head and says you need to do this. So tonight we're going to deep dive into some of the tools that will help you to fast track your success, get the very important stuff done, and because that's what's going to create a successful business for you. So let me just share my screen and share the presentation, and we'll rock on this evening. So again, if you've anything to ask, just put it into the chat, yeah? And I will promise that I will visit the chat on a regular occasion and answer any questions as we go. Don't worry if you didn't join us last week, because I'm going to do a summary of last week anyway. And then if you need to deep dive in, all of the recordings are in the Units tab or in Photography Think Tank. Or if you're in 3XM Insiders, they're in the Units tab there too. So you can always catch up, and there's wonderful content there. I think this is about our 65th broadcast now on the Think Tank. So we've loads of information there to help with you. And then if you are around too on Thursday night, I mean, so we do it twice a week in Thursdays. So this Thursday we have Ray Lowe, chairman of MPA. He's been in the business for a long, long time, 40 plus years. And he's going to talk to us about how you can make more money using generational portraits. So do join us on Thursday as well. So I've already explained NB. I have this very important word in beforehand because that's what it means. So quite often, if you're like me, you wonder, what did I do today? And what did I get done at the end of the week? And it's just human nature that we often maybe prioritize to get the very important stuff done, but life just gets in the way. And we end up there, not getting done. So over the years, I've learned to take that and try and build it into frameworks that help me get more of the stuff done rather than the urgent stuff. Because quite often we are busy bees and something pops up that we have to deal with, and we end up quite often at certain times of the year, we're more busier, running around like headless chickens, right? And we talked about that last week and all the things. But just to summarize, we came up with a 5Q test to help decide and distinguish the very important from the urgent. So the first test is it strategic? Because if it's on the strategic side of what you do in your business, well, then that's very important. But it's often the stuff that gets sidelined for the operational stuff. So the stuff that just pops up that we have to deal with. So a client rings in and complains and wants to talk to you, or whatever that might be. Somebody decides to leave and you have to hire someone new. So it wasn't part of the overall plan, but you have to get involved in the process. Obviously, the bigger the business you have, it frees up more time and you have people to do this stuff. But most of us are small businesses, aren't we? So we're doing everything. If you're like me, you know, quite often I might be cleaning the toilets, or I might be creating a 5-year business success plan, you know, and everything in between. So sometimes it can be different, and this bit takes over the operations and management. So we have to carve out time for the very important. And what I've realized over the years is the best way to do that is to have a system around it. Because, you know, the old principle that you hear, what gets measured gets done, has never been truer, but you need to have a process for measuring it and also discovering what you need to get done. And last week I shared a story of the need to have a plan. I'm not going to go through this story again. You can watch it if you want one for last week. But the important thing here is, you know, we can get lost. We can get lost if we haven't got a plan. But often the plan that ends up this thick, you know, a real thick plan that we might have to put together. If you've ever worked in a company for banks or stuff like that, they want all the detail and 5-year plans and all the financial metrics and all that. You know, by the time you have it created, it's not worth the paper it's written on. And second of all, it's no bloody use to you to implement, yeah? Because it's that thick. How do you actually turn something that's that thick into a useful document you can use all the time? So I discovered in a book called Traction, and I can't remember the author's name now, but it's really good, Traction. And one of their principles was a 2-page business success plan. And of course, as I do, I took that 2-page business success plan that was for generic, bigger businesses. And I've sort of built it around the principles that I've taught for years to photographers, how to achieve your dreams and create a successful business. But I took the principles of having all that on 2 pages and sort of migrated it down to 2 pages. And last week we talked all about the 3 circles of you and understanding, you know, where you want to take your business. We talked about the importance of having a why and a purpose and your core values. But today I'm going to concentrate on this part and deep diving that and linking it for you into how to get the very important stuff done, the stuff that we tend to overlook, and putting the system around that. So this is the high level plan, if we call it that, but then we have to break it down into smaller steps to actually put it into action and get the stuff done. Okay. So I mentioned to you last week, and we deep dived into this, that there's certain stages that you will go through to make this happen. And this is my 3D circles of continuous business success. So you got to go discover. So even if you want to discover, and we'll be talking about that a little bit later, your ideal gold avatar, you know, you got to discover who are they and where are they and where do they hang out. But we've a tool to help you with that. Then you've got to decide, and you do research around that discovery, yeah, to discover like what social media platform do they use, you know. So you go to research to discover, and then you decide, yeah, that's definitely my ideal client. Go tar, that's who they are, and that's who I'm going after, and they're right for my business. And you plan about how you market to them, and you go and do it. But all the time you're quantifying your results. So anything that I have developed out for you in the 2-page business success plan, linking in to the 6D fast track system that we're going to look at now, is based around ensuring that you go through this process. So even when you're designing your simple marketing plan or a campaign, you're building these principles into it. So let's deep dive into some of that. But before we do that, let's briefly talk about the green-eyed monster. So we talked about this last week. You know, quite often we're distracted by what is a green-eyed monster. It looks gorgeous. Yeah, these eyes look gorgeous. But when you actually get closer to it and you can see it, it's absolutely a monster. And the best tool to overcome that is knowing who your client gold avatar is. So who is your ideal client? So I'm going to give you an example of this a little bit later to show you how you go about creating this. And I'll give you a photographer example, Dave in Chicago, as to what he did to produce his ideal client gold avatar. And it's really important, you know, that we don't get distracted, you know, because if we don't have a focus, what happens? You know, you end up like this lovely lady. She's walking along, watching her phone, not watching what she's doing because she's been distracted, and she crashes in and ends up with a bloody nose. Yeah. So we've got to have some sort of system, and we can't help ourselves as human beings get distracted on occasion. So therefore we need to have a way to get back to where we need to be on the very important stuff. And that's what I'm going to share with you. And we're going to deep dive into that tonight. So I've also told you about the 6D fast track success system, and this follows a certain process. And we went into this last week in detail as to what this is. But tonight we're going to deep dive into this, where we've an actual example of a photographer who's used this to create their campaigns, yeah, their marketing campaigns. So let's move on and try and deep dive into that. We talked last week quite a bit about the importance of understanding your why. You know, why are you a photographer? Why are you as a person on this planet? What is your purpose? You know, what difference does your photography make? And I summarized for you a story around why I believe, sorry, not why I believe, why I know photography is so important, and why I have dedicated my life to helping photographers create more successful businesses so that more photography is created and enjoyed by our communities, and by them simply smiling, by beautiful art you create a healthier society of mind, body, and spirit. And we deep dived into that last week. So if you want to deep dive into that, have a look at last week's webinar where I explain that in more detail and how it all comes about. But it basically comes about that your photography, depending on what you do, the power of a simple smile makes a healthier society and body. The psychological effect, empowerment of the work you do makes people have a stronger mental health. And the work that you do, when it's seen by the younger members of our communities, which are the important, it's been proven that they have a higher self-esteem when they see themselves reflected in photographic art as members of a family with those strong bonded relationships. So that's what we do. So all the work we do, regardless of what the end result is, in whether that's newborn or it's boudoir, it doesn't matter what it is for family portraiture, that's the difference your work makes. So I have, and if you don't believe me, this is my daughter Freya. You know, I didn't prompt her to do this. It's just an example of what I see all the time and what I hear back from photographers. But Freya had a difficult teenage years. In fact, it was really difficult. I won't say, you know, whether she'd be still with us. But this was a portrait done by a good friend of mine with his new virtual portrait business. And this was her reaction when she got it. And it's just an amazing reaction. Like if I couldn't have written this better if I tried to, but it explains exactly what I've explained in the previous areas about the importance of the work you do as a photographer. So we have developed those 3XM products to help you increase your sales and make you more successful so that we create a healthier society together. We developed out our Ways to Go program, but that wasn't enough for me. I said, we need to find a way to amplify this. How can I do something that will help you as a photographer and photographers around the world to amplify this message and make a real difference? And I set myself the target of helping 1,000 photographers, because I said, if I can help 1,000 photographers who on average have 200 happy clients a year who've got that photographic art to enjoy, that's 200,000 people a year. If you take the average family size, it's 3.1. That's over 600,000 people per year interacting with that photographic art and being healthier in mind, body, and spirit. So how can I do that? Because we're not a big brand, and photographers aren't. You don't have big brand and big budgets. And the best way to do that, because we did it with our business, is to learn how to pan for client gold online and sell your business online effectively. And that's what we've done with all of our businesses. So we did it with 3XM. Like, we're based in Dublin, Ireland. Our biggest market is the US. Our second biggest market is the UK. Our third biggest market is mainland Europe. And, you know, we've done that from a little pokey little spot in the world in Ireland. You know, the total population of Ireland is less than 5 million, and we sell now to 42 countries worldwide. And we couldn't have done that without learning how to pan for ideal client gold online. So we took all that success and we blended it together with some experts who are photographers who are doing this too. And we have created Business Success Academy to amplify that effect, to teach you how to do this, to teach you how to find your ideal client gold online. And we do that because, for me, any success at anything I've ever been involved in, and I believe in lifelong learning. I do a course every couple of years, you know. I did my last master's in 2010. Every couple of years I do something. Last year I did something. 3 years prior to that I did stuff. And it's really important to do that. But for me, where I get the most success out of is where these 3 legs of the stool are solved. Knowledge through training is one aspect, but that on its own is never enough. You need support through mentorship. You need people who've done this in the field who can help you and guide you through the process. And then as humans, we need to be accountable. We always need accountability, and we've created accountability through community. And in Business Success Academy, it's a community of photographers on the one mission. We're all working together. We're all helping each other, and we are panning for client gold with success. So let's just we can talk about that again at the very end, but let's get back to what this is all about and creating a system. So let's say you are planning for a client goal and you need to get stuff done. How do you go about this, and what's the process, and what are the tools that can help you do that? So let's just talk about some of them. So for me, you know, those of you who've watched me before, that I'm also a profit first coach. And for me, to be successful in business, and how we've been successful in our business, and the successful businesses that I see, they know their numbers. They know exactly what they need to do. Wouldn't it be great to know, to put whatever income you want into your pocket? You know exactly how many leads your marketing is to create. Absolutely it would, right? Wouldn't it be great to know how many bookings that you need in your business in order to put whatever money you want into your pocket? Wouldn't it? Wouldn't it be great to know that by marketing online, that you can actually fill your studio or your business with higher paying clients all year round and take away seasonality? And the key to doing that is not to only learn the systems of how to plan for a client goal online and to have the structure around doing that, but you need to understand what you're trying to achieve. And unfortunately, I know us creatives, we hate the numbers piece. I'm there with you. But I've had to learn the numbers, because I knew that unless I know the numbers, that I'll be just out. It'd be like going out in a boat without a compass. Yeah. And I'll be lost. I won't know where I am, and I'll be lost very, very, very quickly. But as creatives, you know, we tend to not be numeric. It doesn't come natural to us. So I've tried to develop the tools to help you to make this as easy as it possibly can be. And I've worked a principle that if I can understand these, then I can help you understand these as well, and you can adopt them into your business. Because if I can learn it, seriously, anybody can learn it. So let's just deep dive then into this stuff. And I have clients now all over the world who start here. You know, they start with the numbers as to what they want to achieve. So we're going to do that, and here's how we're going to link the process. So we have our 2-page business success plan that we've talked about already, and we've deep dived into this piece, and we talked about this piece, and we have our numbers. Then we've got to link it then to our client, because our marketing is all about finding our ideal client goals. So we've got to understand who our ideal client is, and then what the numbers are around those. So I talk about our marketing sales ratio. So don't be put off by the lingo. What that basically is if you want X number of sales, how many leads do you need at the front end to achieve those number of sales? But then you also know that when you achieve those number of sales, value, what you can put in your pocket as a business owner. But this is the only time we put the cart before the horse. So we start backwards and then we work forward. But once we've calculated out all those numbers and we have our plan and we know what we have to do, how do we go about actually doing it and measuring our success? So one of the questions that I'm often asked is, so Roland, yeah, I'm going to do this online marketing, and yes, I can use Facebook and I'm going to learn it. How much should I spend on my Facebook marketing? And the answer is, I don't know, because I don't know how many leads you need to create to deliver you the income that you want from your business. And I've met photographers who are starting out in their career, they've done their job while they build their business, and they want to earn $3,000 or $4,000 a year from their photography business initially. And I've had photographers who want $1 million studio. So the answer is different for everyone in there. I have clients who work on getting an average of $7,000, $8,000. I have other clients who work on $1,500, and I have other clients who work on an average of $500 or $600. Yeah. So everyone's position is different, and everyone's story is different, and everyone's desires are different. But the principles that we're going to go through here can be applied to any business, regardless of the size. In fact, we apply these principles in our business, and we're a small business too, but we're a business of 30 people. But these principles will work for any business of any size. Okay, So let's try then and link these. So this high level strategy stuff to the numbers piece to actually doing this on a daily, weekly basis. How does all that fit together? So the best way to start with that is let's start with the 3 marketing pillars. So the 3 marketing pillars are important because, if you're going to write a love letter, so I want you to imagine you've fallen in love and you're separated, and the only way you can contact is to send a love letter. When you're writing that love letter, I guarantee you have a vision of that person in your head, the person you love. You can actually see them as you write to them. And that's really important to have that vision, because by having that vision, we as humans, it then makes the writing easier because we're visioning the person. So in the same with your marketing, you need to have a vision for your client. And what I've done is, and this is something that we've used in our business for years, and many photographers are now using it who have educated over years to do this, is that there's 3 pillars to your marketing. And the first one is your brand positioning statement. I'm going to go into that in detail a little bit more now. But one thing I've done, and I've done from the Ways to Go program, or the Ways to Go program, deep dives into all the detail. I've tried to then take it out and prompt you as to what you need to fill in the blanks with to fulfill these. So in the Ways to Go program, we deep dive, I didn't mean to go forward. We deep dive into, how you go about creating your brand position statement and why it's important and what to consider. And we deep dive into understanding your value pyramid and what the different ones are and how all that ties together. But here I'm just asking you the question with a blank where you can fill in the blank. And the same for your client gold avatar, and the same for your client gold elevator pitch. But let's just take an example, because we all learn from others, don't we? And we see other people and what they've done. It just helps to clear it up for us as to what we need to do. So let's take this then and break it into an actual example. This is Dave in Chicago. And when Dave went through his brand positioning statement, this is what he completed. We are the Disney of themed children's portraiture experience, and we are competing on the quality value pyramid. Okay, so what does that mean? So the process here is the first piece that Dave has chosen is he's chosen a brand that he loves. So Dave loves Disney. He spends a lot of time in Disney. He loves how they do everything. For him, that's his brand. In 3XM, our brand is Apple. So we say we are the Apple of the photographic supplies business, and we're competing on the quality value pyramid. So what does that do? So for us in our business, it means that before we were the Microsoft. So before we would develop a new product, and like Microsoft used to do years ago, they develop a new piece of software, they put it on the market, they get feedback from the client base as to what was wrong with it, they tweak it, fix the bugs, and reissue it. Yeah. And not that the product is crap and it doesn't do its job, of course it does, but their principle is different than Apple. So Apple's approach would be, no, we have to have this absolutely perfect. We have to have it designed, tested, multiple testing before we launch any product. And we only went through this in 3XM a couple of years ago. And because before that, we were Microsoft. We would launch a product and believed it was really, really good, but we wouldn't have put it through loads and loads of testing to discover that. And it bit us in the ass on occasion where we got things a little bit wrong. Yeah, we had to backtrack on it and fix things. Now we're the Apple. So our new folio art frame that we launched last year was a year late launching, because we said, no, we're going to miss the launch date. It has to be right before we launch it. We have to be 99% sure that we've got this perfect before we launch it. Yeah. And that has helped us. So because our position statement, we are the Apple, we would say, right, here's our situation. What would we do in this situation? So we knew that when we had the folio art frame, because we hadn't done all the detailed testing yet, and we knew that Apple wouldn't launch it till they felt it was perfect. Microsoft would get the feedback and fix it as they go. Yeah, that's what Microsoft used to do. So what Dave here is doing is we are the Disney of teamed children's portrait experiences. So this is saying he loves the Disney brand. This is the big brand he's based his business on. So how do Disney do stuff? He sign up to all their newsletters. He looks at their website. He looks at their marketing, and he learns from that as to how he needs to create that experience for his teen children's portraiture. Yeah. And he's also identified that he's competing on the quality value pyramid. So what does that mean? Well, there's three main pyramids of value that you can compete on. The first is price. The second is convenience. And the third one is quality. Now, why is that important? Well, it's important to understand where you're going to pitch your price, first of all, but it's also important that if you're going to compete on the quality, and a lot of high-end studios do that, yeah, they're competing on the quality, everything has to align with the quality. You can't charge a 5-star hotel price and deliver a 1-star hotel experience. Yeah. So it helps you then align everything. So even when you're writing your marketing, this not only helps to say, you know, we need to communicate like Disney would, so in a fun way, but we also need to make sure our experience is like Disney, you know, like the fast pass and stuff that it has to be quick. But our pricing is all going to be on the quality side of things, yeah. And Disney ain't cheap either, yeah. They're on the quality side of things too. So that's your brand positioning statement. So that sits up here as part of one of the three pillars, and it's in front of you. So every time you go to do something and you create your marketing, whatever, it's there as a guide. Yeah, you can read that, and when you, even if you write an email or you write a Facebook ad, you're not going to reference that and say, does that now align with my brand positioning and value pyramid statement? You know, it's a checkbox for you to make sure you've had that right. Just like the vision of the person you're writing your love letter to. Yeah, it's a vision you have of who your client goal is and how you're going to pitch it to them. Okay, so the next thing then Dave needed to do was understand his client goal avatar, because just like panning for gold, yeah, sometimes you find pyrite, better known as fool's gold. It looks like your ideal client, but it's not. Yeah, and the best way to know that is to have again recorded who your ideal client goal avatar is. So what marketing generation are they from? So for Dave, his marketing generation is Gen Y. Why? Because Gen Y are the people who have children, yeah, who are of the age who will want that experience, that their parents will want that experience, and they'll also enjoy it, yeah, when they're at that innocent age, you know. So he knows that that's who he's targeting. He also wants to know where do they hang out offline, and he's identified that a lot of his clients, yeah, for whatever reason, they're at football practice. So they tend to be on the sideline cheering on the kids at football. You know, why? He's not quite sure, but that's something he's noticed. So that's good to know, because Dave's going to make sure that his offerings are made available and that the people who go to these football practices are aware of that. Yeah, so you might do some sort of deal or promotion or special or whatever that is, but he knows where they are. The second thing is then he knows that this generation of the age, so the older millennials or kids, that they're using Facebook. They're on, that's the traffic mountain. That's where the client gold is. You know, they're on that mountain. It's we got a pan for client gold on the Facebook traffic mountain. Yeah. So he knows then where he's going to, spend his time on that. Oh, what did I do wrong there? I went back instead of forward. Okay. The next piece then is their neighborhood. So a lot of photographers use this. They manage to identify where their ideal client goal lives. So they find the creek on the mountain that is the creek with the most gold, that's easiest to find. Yeah. So just as if you're panning for client gold. So they use that then in their marketing and their online marketing to develop questions within their funnels to identify what is ideal client goal and what's pyrite. So that's why that's really important here. And the other things that Dave has discovered is he's discovered that they want their children to have a fun childhood, that they invest their time to ensure that their children are having fun and have a happy childhood. That's not to say every parent does, but his ideal client gold client is like that. They tend to even be more wanting for their children to have fun. They want to capture the memories of their children growing up while the child is in that innocent phase. Sorry, I don't know why that keeps jumping on for me. Apologies. That's where no, that's not where I was. Sorry, I don't know what I'm pressing. I'm trigger happy. Apologies. So they want to capture their child growing up during this child's innocent phase. So while before the children go through puberty and all that, they want to capture the kid while they're in that innocent stage, and everything is wonderful, and Christmas is wonderful, and the holiday season, and all that good stuff that goes with that. And they tend to also love Disney, Universal, and storytelling. They love, their children love books, and they're into their books and their Harry Potter books and all those things. They love going to Disney, and he's identified that they're his ideal client goal avatar. So that just helps, and that's the second pillar. So when you have the 3 pillars complete, it just helps. So the next piece, which is the client goal, the elevator pitch, this helps Dave then when he's writing his ad copy or writing his content for anything, that it just helps then to figure the language and what messaging might connect with his ideal client goals. So when he's planning for client goals with his funnels and his adverts on social media, on Facebook for his ideal client, that they're going to connect. And equally, the advert is going to not connect with people who aren't his ideal client. Yeah, so he gets less pyrite into his world, and he's not spending a whole lot of time doing photo shoots that aren't going to end up in an average sales value that he requires. Yeah. So the steps to this is in creating your client goals elevator pitch is, what's the problem you're going to solve? How do you solve it? And what's the transformation? So what is the transformation for the client having gone through the service? So for Dave, it is many mums just don't have the time to capture memories of their children that capture their true personality. We solve this by providing team portrait experience guaranteed to ensure your child has Disney-like fun. See that? He's brought the his favorite brand and his brand position statement into the line here, which I love. Because he also knows that his ideal client loves Disney too. Yeah, so it's connecting because he identified that in his client goal avatar. Imagine, and imagine is a great word. Why imagine? Why have I said start with imagine? When I mention the word imagine, what happens? I bet you the minute I say imagine, you're starting to visualize stuff. Yeah. And that's what it does. It triggers something in our brain to visualize something. So you're looking for the person here to visualize the end result. Yeah. So you're future pacing the benefits, because we talk about this a lot in photography, don't we, that the work that we do becomes more valuable in time. So then in our marketing, we've got to try and future pace that value so that the client sees the value today. And that's what he's doing here. Imagine enjoying those happy memories of your children having fun during those precious innocent years, and you could even add to this long after they've flown the nest. Yeah. So that's your client elevator pitch. And then these 3 things then inform your marketing. So when you've done your plan then, and you've done the strategy piece, so this is the strategy piece of the marketing. So what we now want to do is connect that then with some more strategy in converting this into actual numbers, and then converting that then into the 60 as to what you're going to do on a day by week basis, on a weekly basis, to make sure you attract this client goal. Because having the strategy piece is really important, yeah. But unless you take action on that strategy piece, it's a waste of your time. You've wasted your time even just creating it. Okay, how are we doing for time? We're doing okay, good. So we're going to have plenty of time for questions tonight. Okay, so let's go to the next stage. So the next stage is the numbers, the KPI numbers. So what are the important numbers and what you need to know? So based on profit first, we know what best business numbers are. So what we've done and what I've done is I've taken that best practice and I've translated it into a calculator to show you what best practice looks like. So it'll create the numbers for you. And that's fine to understand the financials and how much sales you need to do. And we'll deep dive in that now in a second so you can see that in action. But then we've got to say, so how do you make those numbers happen? And that's where the marketing sales ratio comes in. So it calculates out for you. If you want to earn this income, so let's put a figure on it, 70,000 worth of income. What does that translate into actual sales number? How many sales are you going to do to create that number? And then going back through your sales and marketing ratio, your process, how many leads you need to generate. And when you complete this stage, then you now know not only what your ideal client looks like from your plan, but you also know the key performance indicator, the numbers that will allow you to deliver on that plan. So I know who my ideal client is. I know what my numbers say I have to do. Now, how do I go about doing that? Yeah. So that's what we're going to get into in a second. But let's just go through the numbers first. Let's just understand them. So we have our BSA Know Your Numbers calculator, and this asks just 6 simple questions to answer all the things. So you're not going through a whole load of P&Ls and balance sheets and producing cash flow statements and talking to your accountant. Yeah. This number I like to start with, so you as the business owner, you as the most important person in your business, what do you want to earn net of tax in your pocket? That's the question I ask. And this number, these were Dave's numbers, but this number can be anybody's number. Yeah. And what I do is by asking you that number, and just the important thing is this is net of tax. This is what you're going to get paid as the business owner, that you have as money to spend, to pay your mortgage, to go on holidays, to do your kids. This is net of tax. Yeah. So that's the first question. The second question I ask you then is, how many sales sessions do you expect to have in 12 months? So you don't have to wait till December to do this. Yeah, you can start now with this. So what do you want to do over the next 12 months? How many sales sessions? People are going to buy from you. How many individual sessions are you building your business around catering for? And I've just chosen the number 100 here. And this might be 1,000. It might be 10. It doesn't matter. Just fill in the number because the calculator will do the rest for you, the calculations. The next question that I ask, and why we need this number, is when we start with profit first principles, we work from owner's pay back up, but we also got to know what your average cost of goods are for your sale. So for these 100 sales, what are you going to spend on product? So that is, if you sell your clients some wall art, or you sell a folio box of images, or you sell an album, whatever that is, or combination is, for that average sale that you're going to do, what are you going to pay in your lab bill, or to 3XM or whatever for the products you buy, the total cost. So put that in an individual sale now. Yeah. So for one sale, what's the average cost of goods going to be? If you're unsure about what that is and you've been in business for a while, you can just look back at last year and say, right, I did 100 sales last year and I spent 35,000 on my lab bill on products and everything else. So my average cost of goods then is 35,000. That's what I spent, divided by 100, which is 350. Yeah. And you would put that number in here. So easy to find numbers. If you're only starting out with business, that's okay too. Just work out what you think that's going to be. Yeah. And if you structure your price list in a proper way, not only can you structure it to make sure you get the average sales value you need, but you can also structure it. You'll know what the input costs of those are. And if you've done ways to go, you've figured out all that already. So the next step then is we work backwards. So what I'm asking here is, for each sale, yeah, how many shoots do you need to result in a sale? So this photographer, Dave, is really good at sales, yeah? So when he does a session, he's really good at qualifying his clients. He knows they're going to spend. So if he does 100 studio experiences, 100 people end up buying. So he's 100% conversion ratio. So he put in 100 here. Yours may not be quite that high because that's really, really high. You know, everybody buys some, but he's worked for years to get these systems right. So if it's 9 out of 10, then that would be 90%. If 8 out of 10 buy, that would be 80%. If that's 3 out of 10, there's a problem earlier in your sales qualification process. Yeah, it should be way more than that. You know, if it's less than 7 out of 10, I'd be worried there's something wrong, you know. 9 would be very good, you know, best practice, and 10 is exceptional. Okay, so whatever that number is, you put that in there. The next step then most photographers do prior to your client coming into your studio for the experience is you will have a conversation with them. Some people dress this up as pre-shoot consultation, whatever it is. I don't care whether a conversation, you call it a pre-shoot consultation or whatever. I don't mind whether it's in your studio, whether it's on the phone, whether you visit their home. It's a conversation, yeah? So what I'm asking you here is, what percentage of people that you have a conversation with come in for a shoot? And you might know this number exactly, and that's okay. But I guarantee you, if you're in business, you know, go with your gut feeling. You will be very close to it. And it's better, you don't need this to be perfect, yeah, because you just need to be close enough. That's all you need, because it's a really good guide. If you're only starting out in business, then just guess it. Guess what you think it is, because it's a target, because then you can measure over time whether you're going to achieve that or not. Yeah. So in this case, Dave, if he has 100 conversations, 65 of them end up in his studio for a session. So that's 65%. Yeah. If you have a higher conversion rate, then let's say you convert 9 out of 10 people that you talk to come in for a shoot, then that's 90%. If it's smaller, if it's 30%, then it's 30%. Yeah. And I'm not overly concerned if that's 30% at this stage, because you can learn to convert people more. It might be just that your marketing is not generating the right type of lead for you. So you're having a whole lot of conversations and you need to change your marketing system and your funnels just to make sure that more of those pyrite, fool's gold clients, you know, don't end up talking to you, that you don't spend resource to it. But I'd much prefer to discover them at this stage of your process than going through all that hassle of a shoot and only discovering it when they come in for the session. Yeah. So, or for the sales session, you know, where they come in and view the images and the slideshow to music and all that, if that's your business model. So the earlier you can find it out, the better. Yeah. And then prior to the conversation, you have to create the leads. Yeah. These are the inquiries that you create with your marketing, where you capture their interest. If you use online marketing, you can capture their interest when they're not even aware that they need your service, which is the best place to capture them. Yeah. If they're finding you in a Google search, they're in logical brain mode. They've already decided they want a photographer. While we spend our life as photographers trying to keep our clients in an emotive state, because we know when they're in an emotive state, they spend more, right? So the beauty about panning for a client gold, ideal client gold online, is they're in an unaware state. So you're attracting them when they don't even realize they need your service. So you're capturing them before they reach that stage where they're searching on Google for a photographer, where they automatically start with that logical brain. How much do you charge for? Bet you've been there, right? Yeah. So by capturing them in an unaware state, where they're not even aware that they need your service, you bring them into your world much earlier in their process, and it's much easier to keep them in an emotive state all the way through your sales process. Okay. So what I'm asking you here is, of the leads you generate in your marketing, how many result in a conversation? So if you have generate 10 leads, how many of those leads end up in a conversation? And for Dave, it's 30%. He's working hard to improve that, because this can be improved. I like to see this at over 50, 60, 70%. And there's certain techniques that you can develop to make that happen. But he's currently at 30. So out of 10 leads he generates 3 end up talking to him in his pre-shoot conversation. So in that case, his answer is 30%. So by answering these 6 simple questions, that's the simple metrics for the calculator to go and do all the calculations for you. It's going to calculate out for you. I'm going to have a look at that now in a second. Best practice financials under profit first principles. But it's also going to calculate out for you, even more importantly, how many leads your business needs to generate to put, whatever, in the case of Dave, 70,000 into his pocket as the owner of his business. Now, isn't that really cool? How many of you already knew that? If you were like me before I started to use these systems, I didn't know. I had a gut feeling, but I didn't know. So I was running blind. Like, I was spending money on my marketing, not knowing what I wanted to achieve and how many leads I needed to generate, you know, and how much business I was going to get from the end of it. And it's just a disaster. I've been there, believe me. I've developed all these systems out of my own mistakes, my own mock-ups along the way. And these systems, when you apply them to your business, absolutely work. I guarantee you that. Not only have I had massive success with these, but my clients have massive success with these, because it just makes everything simple and into a process, and it all makes logical sense. Okay. So having filled in these numbers, yeah, the calculator goes away, and the first thing it calculates out for you is, you know, your mini P&L. You know, it's nearly a mini, it's actually your profit first principles calculated out for you. So we started with owner's pay of 70,000, and using profit first best practice principles, we know that owner's pay for a business of this size should be 50% of what we call real revenue. So what's real revenue? Just briefly, it's the difference between your total sales number and your cost of goods, your purchases. That's it in a nutshell. But it's a great way to bring all businesses, regardless of the business, onto the same level. So Dave now knows from this that if he wants to earn 70,000, that he needs real revenue of 140,000, that if he manages to run his business with operating expenses no more than 42,000, that he needs to put 21,000 into his taxation account to pay his tax bill at the end of the year, so his business pays his tax bill for him. Another important principle. A lot of business owners think, I take out my money, and what I take out, I'm going to have to park some of it to pay my tax bill. Your business should pay your tax bill for you as the owner. You take all the risk. Because if you take it out, unless you're very disciplined and you park some of it away, you'll end up spending it. So by parking 15% of your real revenue into a bank account, at the end of the year, Dave has not only paid himself 70,000, he's run his business on 42,000, but he has 21,000 in his tax account to pay his tax bill. So the higher that figure is, he's not running around like a headless chicken trying to find the money to pay the taxman in time so he avoids jail. He's celebrating. The higher it is, the more he has earned in his business. Yeah. And he has the money to pay his tax bill because it's in a separate bank account. Yeah. So we're not going to deep dive into profit first and how it works tonight, but basically how profit first works it works like an envelope system. So for those of you who have had grandparents or parents who know this system, quite often what used to happen is we were paid in cash in those days, and the man of the house would generally come home with his weekly wage. He'd pass it to the woman of the house, who would divide it out into envelopes. So there's the rent money, there's a few bob in the savings envelope, there's a few bob in the holiday envelope, and there's a few bob or a few dollars. And what's left goes into the envelope that the food is bought for the week. So if there was some overtime that week, we might have a bit of steak for dinner this week on one of the days. If it was a difficult week and there was no overtime, or there was an unexpected expenditure for something and the money wasn't in the envelope for that, we may have less spend. So it might be eggs and beans, you know, with no meat this week. Yeah. So that's same applies here. That in profit first, you have your multiple bank accounts, and when you receive your revenue, you divide it out based on these percentages into the bank accounts. And that's why at the end of the year, you always have the money to pay your tax bill. Okay, so these are the target numbers. Now, when you do this, you may not have these percentages. I have seen businesses, photography of this size, where the operating expenses are just totally out of kilter. I've seen as high as 80%, believe it or not. So in that, where they should be at 30%. So in that case, you can't fix that overnight, but at least by having this target, you can put a plan to identify what your operating expenses are and how do you get them down. But this is best practice in profit first. Like, there's 500 plus now consultants worldwide, and we've looked at thousands of business and analyzed them for various sizes. And for a business of this size, with real revenue of this size, this is the best practice that a business of that size should be producing. Yeah. So do you remember we looked a little bit earlier and we calculated out that we wanted to have 100 sales sessions? Do you remember that? So what we do then is we say our total revenue is going to be 175,000 to deliver these numbers. Yeah. So if we have 100 sales sessions, our average sales value needs to be 1,750. There's not really cool information to learn, because I hear a whole load of educators talking about, oh, you can create the perfect price list to achieve what you need and all that. By knowing your average sales value, you can absolutely create a price list to ensure that your average sales value of this is always met or surpassed. So that's why these metrics are important, because you know that if you get an average sales value of 1,750 and you have 100 paying client sessions a year and you adhere to these principles, that you can pay yourself 70,000 this year net of tax. Isn't that cool? I think it's cool. I think it's really important to know those numbers. So when you've done this in the calculator, then you convert these numbers into the Profit First financials on your one-page business success plan. So I've just taken a snapshot of that piece of it. So you have your 3 marketing pillars sitting here, and here you have your number principles and your financials. So it's in front of you all the time to remind you as to what you need to do. Okay. So what's the next stage of this? So the next stage then is, okay, so I know what I need to do in average sales value. So I need 1,750 average sales to give myself 70,000 net profit in my pocket. Yeah. So what does K stand for? Rob is asking. Where did you see the K, Rob? If it's this K here, it's key performance indicators. So they're numbers that are key numbers that you need to measure. So we try and keep them to a limited number of numbers so that it's easier to measure. If you've got a big, long P&L statement, it's really hard to measure that, isn't it? If you're like me, you get confused by it. Oh, is that up or down and what it is? So it's just a way of what are the key numbers that you're going to measure that are easy to measure going forward. So if that's the K you're talking about, that's what it stands for. Key performance indicators. Okay. So we've identified that to earn 70,000 worth of business, we need an average sale of 1,750. And we've identified that we want 100 sessions. But how many leads do you need to create to do that? How many inquiries do I need? How many conversations do I need to make that happen? So based on the answers to the numbers that we put in earlier in the calculator, it calculates that out for you. So it calculates for your 100 sales. Dave has, we talked already, if he does a shoot experience, everyone converts to a sale for him. So he's 100% record there. So he knows that he's got to build his business around having 100 client shoots. He knows, based on the numbers that he put in, that 65% of conversations he has, so for 100 conversations, that 65 of them end up in the studio for a shoot. So this then calculates then that he's going to have 154 conversations based on those assumptions. Yeah. And then he knows then that of the conversations he has, of the leads he generates, he talks to 30% of those. Do you remember that number? So that means for 100 sales, at his average sales value of 1,750, at the Profit First principles to give himself 70,000 in his pocket, he has to generate 513 leads in the next year. So that's, and again, a bit of the big picture, in that he knows he's got to do that over the year. But how does he do it and when does he do it? And we get to that in a second. So the next calculation is really important for that. So, and this is a rounded number, yeah? So for each client goal sale, so for each of these, you need to create client goal leads numbering 5. So where did that number come from? So it's just dividing the 513 by the 100 to give you 5. But the calculator does that for you. So at least now, Dave knows when he's doing a campaign, he now knows that based on what he's been successful with in the past and what he's been doing, that he needs to generate 5 leads for one sale. That's what he needs to do. So when he's then converting that into a campaign and what he needs to do, and he's checking that against his calendar as to how many sessions he needs to fill, then he has a number then to base that on. And then he never asks anymore as to how much should I spend on Facebook to generate a lead, and how many leads do I need to generate? Because he already knows from his numbers. Yeah. So even if you don't know these numbers, use your best guess. You'll be close, I promise. And at least then you have a target. So you will have a target, so you won't actually ask those numbers. And the 6D framework that we're going to get onto now in a second will help you not only identify what that target is and what those assumptions are, but it's a process then to measure what actually happens, so you can figure out what you need to change the next time you do it. Because this is a learning process. It's a continuous learning process. Yeah. So when we have these numbers, what do we do with them? Of course, we put them into the marketing sales ratio element of our one-page business success plan, and it's there in front of us. So we know what we're aiming to achieve, and that target is there for us all the time. And it's underneath our metric numbers, our financial numbers, as beside our marketing pillars, as beside our 3 circles of view. So it's there on one page. That's our desire page. That's our vision page for our business. That's what we need to make happen. To what? To deliver you 70,000 in your pocket at the end of the year, if these are your numbers. And that can be anything. Yeah, it does not be 70,000. As we said earlier, it can be 3,000, 4,000, it can be 1 million. The principles are exactly the same. Yeah? Okay. So let's deep dive now, because we have 5 minutes left, into how do we take all this information then and actually break it down to what am I going to do today? Yeah, what am I going to do today to make this happen? So Dave has decided that he's looked at his calendar, and Dave works an 8-week calendar. So he's filling his sessions for 8 weeks. Yeah. And he identifies that for November, he's 10 sales sessions that he needs to fit into November. Based on the numbers we've just talked about, how many leads does Dave need to create? Go on. Who guessed 50? You didn't guess 50. You worked out the numbers, didn't you? So if he needs 10 sales, we know for every 1 sale, Dave needs 5 leads. So he needs 50. 5 times 10, he needs to create 50 leads. Yeah? Okay. So he now knows that his campaign is going to run to fill his 10 sales sessions for November. He needs to create 50 leads. Yeah. So now we have a target. So he sits down then with his 6D campaign fast track success system. And he says, for my campaign to fill my November wizard shoots, I've created a budget of $500. And I aim by the 16th of September to have generated 50 leads that I can turn into 10 bookings. And I know that these 10 bookings will result in average sale of 1,750. So I'm going to generate expected revenue of 17,500. So now Dave has put in his desire, his goal for this campaign, that he is going to generate 50 leads that turn into 10 bookings who are going to spend 1,750 on average each to give him this amount of income. So that's his desire, that's his goal for this campaign. Yeah. So the next step in this is to discover, so what am I going to do that? How am I going to do this? What will I do? So Dave knows that, luckily for Dave, he's done this before. So, and the last time he did this, he used his plan for a client goal direct offer funnel. So what's that? It's an online marketing funnel where he targets mums on Facebook, brings them to his direct offer funnel, makes them an offer. They register then for a booking, and then that's his lead. And then the next stage is they go on then, and a number of them then pay the booking fee to reserve the spot. Yeah. And he knows the last time he ran this campaign, and that's where the budget came from, that the last time he ran this, he got 12 leads and he spent $500. So he got 12 bookings, I mean, and he spent $500 to get those 12 bookings. So he's sort of pitching around the same, because generally Facebook goes up a little bit in price around election time, because Biden and Trump's teams are spending loads of money on social media. So Facebook, you know, how it works on is people pay to get traffic and put your message in front of them. So it tends to go up. And also at the end of the year, because all the Christmas stuff is happening, generally you have to spend a little bit more on Facebook than you would at other times of the year. So he knows that from past experience, so he's done that. So this is what he thinks he's going to do, but he wants to go and double check it, yeah, because we all have gut instincts as to what we think is the best way to do it. But where's the evidence? Where's the evidence, Dave? So Dave has the evidence because he knows that he ran this before in July, and that he collected his 12 bookings at a total cost of $520 or $500, whatever that was. So he puts that in there. So that's his, yeah, I'm making the right decision because I've discovered more information now. My hunch was right. That's what I'm going to do. And then he sets to do it. Because a lot of people with anything in life, yeah, we have a goal, we desire something, we discover how we might do it, we make a decision to do it, and then we never do it. If you're like me, you've been there. I've been there so many times over the years when I started losing weight. This year, I actually used this system for the first time in my personal life. And it has me on track to reach my target for the first time ever weight-wise. So I set myself a target of losing 50 pounds, 1 pound a week, starting on the 2nd of January. It was after New Year's Day. And by Christmas this year, by the 25th of December, to be down 50 pounds. And I'm on target to achieve that. And literally, I'm 51 this year. I have tried this for decades I have tried. And because I didn't have a system around it, it just didn't work for me. So this works. It works in business. It works for no matter what you want to do, this system will work. But we've moved it into our marketing, but it can work for anything. So I'm going to do it. So my decision is I'm going to set it live because I've already built it. I've had it from before. I just need to change the ad copy a little bit, change the dates on the marketing funnel so I can set it live on the 9th day of September. And I'm going to run it for 5 days, and I'll review the results in my Facebook Business Manager, and I'll where I gather my bookings. So he knows what he's going to measure. So in my case, you know, I'm doing this. I break it down into, on the weight loss, I break it down into a 6-week piece, what I'm going to do over the 6 weeks. And where am I going to measure it? I'm measuring it on my Fitbit scales. So I bought a Fitbit scales that's linked to my watch, that's linked to my app, and it measures it for me. And I can see, am I on target? I weigh in 3 times a week, and I see, is my average, am I down a pound a week? So it's little steps when we get there. So we do it then, yeah. So then we do it, and the campaign runs for the 5 days. And quite often then people generate their leads, and that's where they stop, yeah. So I've got my leads, I've got my bookings, happy days, but there's always ways to improve things. So what I encourage you as part of this system is to measure what you actually delivered. So at the end of it, not only what did you deliver in leads and bookings, but did the average sales value stay the same? You know, so this is what you expect to deliver in average sales value. So this is the delivery. And then what you do is at the end, when you've gone through the process, you dissect it. And you look at what your goal was and what you actually delivered. And if you were running, when you're running this the next time, is there one thing you would change? Yeah? And this comes back to the scientific approach. And this is where a lot of people get mixed up in their marketing, is if you change multiple things, you never know. When you have success, you never know what thing actually resulted in the success. So it's like this vaccine that we're developing for COVID, yeah? When they're developing these vaccines and these medicines, they change just one element at a time and measure the effect. Because if they change 2 elements, they're not sure which one resulted in the solution. Yeah. So with your marketing too, you have to have a scientific approach to it. You change just one thing. So the dissecting is about looking at the results versus what you desired and discovering, when you run this the next time, is there anything you would change? What would you change? Yeah. So in Dave's case, he might decide here that, you know, the results were actually better than before, or if they were worse than before, you know, what would he change next time? Would he change the ad copy, or would he change some of the messaging on his landing page, or what would he change? But he wouldn't change both together. He'd only change one. And, you know, it's human nature for us to jump in and change everything together. We all do it. I've done it so many times, but it's a mistake. Okay. So that's what we do. That's the system you would follow. That's what will fast track your success, by following those simple things. And tonight I've tried to link those three things. In Business Success Academy, we know that to make this happen, that not only do you need the training and the knowledge, you need support through mentorship, and you need accountability through community. Because this is not really difficult to do, but it does take some perseverance and sticking with it. And when we design Business Success Academy, we've ensured that we're delivering on these three things. So if you would like to join us in Business Success Academy, you can scan this, or you can click on this link and join us for a 14-day free trial. So why am I giving a 14-day free trial? For those of you who know me, you know that I work really hard to help photographers to be more successful in business, because the more business you do as a photographer, the more photographs that are created, and enjoyed by consumers, the more smiles a healthier society we have in mind, body, and spirit. And hopefully, as a result of that, there are parents of young teenagers like we were 10 years ago who don't have to go through what we went through with Freya. And not only what we went through, what she went through, God love her. But she's come out the other end now. She's a healthy young woman. She's great. We didn't think then we were going to get through it, but we did. And, if I know your photography can reduce the instances of that happening to people. So not only can you help adults to feel more empowered, I hear this every day with from boudoir photographers and women who do boudoir or glamour makeover or fashion shoots, whatever you want to call those sessions. I hear about family and the difference it makes. And right now, going through this pandemic, the other side of it, as we start to come out the other side of it, there's a lot of scars, but there's a lot of scars up here, yeah. And we've worked hard with the health scars and keeping people healthy and safe and recovering from that health-wise. But we've a really important job to do as an industry for the people who are suffering up here, and so many people are. We're all scarred in some way from it. And by capturing those important relationships, because that's the one thing that's coming out. I'm hearing it everywhere. I'm hearing it from photographers all over the world, that the people now that they're interacting with, the people that want photography, they want to capture those relationships, because a lot of people have formed closer bonds going through this with their partners, with their siblings, with their offspring, with their pets. These bonds are stronger, and it's our job to capture those and create a healthier society in doing that. Okay, so if you would like to learn how to pan for client gold, and we have various funnels to help you do that, and we teach you all how to do this. Not only do give you the knowledge to do it, we give you the mentorship and support to do it, and we give you the accountability of the group. Do think on joining us. Thank you so much for joining us. And we'll don't forget to join us on Thursday. Yeah, we've the great Ray Lowe here on Thursday. Ray, for those of you who don't know him, his personality is bigger than himself. He's a lovely man. He's a heart of gold. And we will learn from Ray as to how there is more money in generational portraiture and how he works that into his business and the difference it's made for his business. So thank you all so much. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you very soon in the Think Tank. Good night to you all.